Soll ich starten? Ja, herzlich willkommen zu unserem Vortrag, zu unserem Talk Deepfakes.
Welcome to our talk, Deepfakes, our new reality. I'm Vera Schmidt, professor at the Technical University of Berlin. I've been in the Himalayas. I like long treks in the desert, and I was even invited to the next ISS mission and just completed the training for it. My name is Tim Pulsel. When I'm not swimming underwater with the fishes, then I'm working on my rockstar career, and I like to fly through the air with a parachute. Or do we? Because if some of you wondered, wow, look at these cool scientists, you were wrong. But if you thought something wasn't quite kosher, then you're right. Some of these images were not real. The ISS image, for example, was fake. We're showing you the solution, which images are fake and which not. And today we're faced with the difficulty of finding out which images are synthetically generated and which are not. But it's getting increasingly more difficult, and that's why we want to talk to you about deepfakes today. And we're going to start with the Wikipedia definition, where deepfakes are defined as realistic media contents that were generated, manipulated, or falsified with the use of artificial intelligence. But this but this doesn't include intention. But intention is important. Intentionality is important. Which intentions could be slander, it could be manipulation. The elections in Argentina last year had an increasing amount of deepfakes. There are lots of elections in Germany this year where we're going to encounter deepfakes, but they can also be used for art and entertainment, which of course have positive connotations and are an interesting application of deepfakes. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Our reality. We have AI for everyone, and we want it to be available to everyone. But then we're saying, please don't use deepfakes. So what can artificial intelligence do? What are we doing? And what do we have to look out for? What can AI do? We all know about Dolly, Stable Diffusion, Midjourney. We know how to use AI to create your own images. This AI is trained on huge amounts of data, and these models generate realistic and surrealistic images. The realistic images sometimes show that AI isn't perfect yet. The Pope has an additional finger. The hair isn't correctly defined. That we notice these mistakes today. We don't know if the next generation of AI tools is going to still show these images, these errors. And as images work today, so video is going to work tomorrow. I'd like to call this good AI, because good AI allows learning, allows understanding, even of complex problems. We have an enhanced creativity because we can infinitely combine everything this AI was trained on, and it's going to give us a productivity boost in design, for example, and video follows image. I can, for example, use AI to take video calls from my mum. That's going to be an important topic in the future. Does it also work for language? Yes. Some of you might have heard of 11 Labs. It's been in the press. Microsoft and OpenAI are also making available lots of speech synthesis or voice cloning models that can already today generate very realistic language. Maybe not on every attempt, but with a bit of effort, you can usually generate a nice deepfake. And this shows the development. 2 years ago, we said, well, speech synthesis is difficult in multiple languages. One language works, another doesn't. These aren't good at imitating emotions. Background noises didn't work. We always found indicators that gave away the deepfakes. But things are different today. But these zero-shot TTS models work in this way. You record or you gather 3, 10, 30 seconds of source material, and then you can use these models to generate semi-realistic and, with a bit of effort, very realistic speech. But I'm still going to call it good AI. Because even if hotlines irritate us, we can interact with them in natural language, and I can understand my own voice as a sort of digital asset. I can train it for myself, and then it generates new contents with my language, and then I can translate that to Chinese. I can't speak Chinese, but my digital voice print can. And if I were ever to lose my language, I've preserved it, and I can keep talking. AI can also be used for the generating of language or text. All of you know ChatGPT. Who of you has used ChatGPT? Hands up. That's most of you. Models, these large language models aren't particularly new. Of course, the mass of data has changed that these models are trained on. But what's changed is the interface, because each and every one of you interacts with these models through a front-facing interface, and that's the novelty here. Can be used in a lot of positive ways, like as in learning, as a writing aid, as automated customer services, for content generation, for inspiration, or for collaborative artwork. For us as scientists, it's useful for automated data analysis, as a writing aid, and for coding. We even use it as a semi-automated code generator. It also changes accessibility for people with disabilities that can find new ways of interacting and communicating. I showed you the future of humanity in 3 jars, but we're wondering about the role of the human. We're always AI developers because the development goes back to us as humans. We're those who design fakes, and we're those who want to use AI more in fact-checking. And it's a cat and mouse game with ourselves. And we've written down 3 non-technical thoughts about the interaction of artificial intelligence and humans. I think we need to go beyond a certain. Well, we need to be more critical of AI. When I wrote this down, I thought, how is that supposed to work? I don't have an answer for you. I think it's a very difficult task and a very long process. But I think that we have to build new trust. People in a society need trust in, for example, news. We need to readjust that trust. And in these years where artificial intelligence is growing, we need to make sure that we don't lag behind. You should never trust AI blindly, but you should nor should you ever reject it entirely and say it's not for me. That doesn't work in today's society. And of course, regulation and law is our approach to starting these measures. We're AI developers for good AI and for fact-checking. And we want to look more closely at what we as developers can do. How can we use good AI for finding disinformation? And we want to show you one of our research projects, News Polygraph, which is representative of several projects where we're collaborating on. It's a project with 10 different partners where you develop AI tools for news fact-checking in a journalistic context. And journalists are the end users of all the tools we're developing, starting with language models that we're developing for the fact-checking use case, but also multimodal deepfake recognition, that's where we're developing tools for the spread of disinformation, the prominence analysis of fake news in various media channels. Exploration is another large topic, but what's central, what's core in all of this is AI-supported fact-checking. People are at the start and at the end of this process, and we're trying to build tools that can support journalists. As well as trust, as Tim said, it's an important topic where we're looking more closely at, for example, ethical implications of all this. I'm working at the German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence. We're recognized as a center of excellence. We have 26 research areas, and collaborators. There are about 100 people working on this News Polygraph project. I'm leader of the Explain NLP team. We're working closely with the other labs with this News Polygraph project, and we're focusing on two core areas. One of them is natural language processing, where we're training language models for the fact-checking use case, but also the knowledge enhancements and how to use that for fact-checking. But also the recognition of disinformation narratives. So very abstractly, which narratives are being shared in various channels, various countries, to understand how this is culturally contextualized. The other topic is trustworthiness. It's very closely related to that, and it plays into all of these processes where we're developing AI processes. I mentioned there are humans at the end and at the start and at the end of this. We want people to be the ultimate deciders. That's what we need, explaining AI, and of course the observation of the AI Act framework, the Digital Frameworks Act, and GDPR.
Okay, so let's take a closer look at what we're working on. This is less about the detection of synthetic text, because this is pretty difficult or impossible. Because if we only have one sentence that is based on ChatGPT, it's almost impossible to detect if it was generated by ChatGPT. This can only be used on larger corpuses. So multiple pages, then you can sort of tell which model this was generated by, but only a few sentences or paragraphs, it's near impossible. That's why we're looking at the content. So we're looking at the facts that are being presented, or the purported facts. Is hate speech being used? Is there very emotional language used? This is also an indicator for misinformation and campaigns. And we published an who published the article, who shared it, how did it spread across different media channels. This this graph here shows you how it spreads across different communities in Twitter. There are certain patterns that you can already use as an indicator in the process of detecting misinformation. And we have another project where we're trying to have a basis of known facts and known fakes that we as a society are dealing with in order to build new tools on that. And here we're generating a knowledge base or a vector database. For example, all of the fact checks that certain public media organizations are doing, or NGOs like International Fact Checking Union. We're trying to take all of these things that they take as secure facts or known facts, and we take that as the base, and we can then tell what is fake, because a lot of them are just reposts or evolutions of the same claim that we've already seen years before. So when we see that something that has strong similarities to an already known fake, then we have a strong indicator that this is also fake. And what we're trying retrieval augmented generation, that means we add knowledge to the already existing claims in order to spread or grow the network of known and unknown, or known fakes and known facts. Okay, now Vera said text is very difficult. We're now taking a look at images and detecting fake news here. There are tools that are called Sentinel, Sensity, Hive, and so on. They're very market-based approaches. If there's a need for it, then they build it, but not necessarily what we need. And there's a generalization problem in research. You usually have collected a lot of data, and if you've trained on it, then it works very well for that kind of thing. But if you try to spread into other areas, then it doesn't work very well. So it's very specific what the model is trained on. And we're trying to now generalize it, because it doesn't work very well if you don't. If you only have the pixels and try to detect on the pixels, same as Vera just said, you usually have sources and patterns in the spread, and we call that context. This is what we're trying to learn on. And you don't have that in the pure synthesis. In video, you usually have other means that to detect, for example, certain errors or cutting patterns or something like that. But in speech, for example, this is also another topic that is a little tricky. Basically, there are also tools by usually the same actors, similar to with video. Usually, they're very good at the material that we've already trained it on, and it's not very good at the rest. And pure synthesis detection is very hard for humans or AI. But obviously, the longer the snippet is that you're looking at, the better it gets. And I brought 2 slides from a model that is very current, that we're currently working on. This is about deepfake detection on voice. We're trying to work against this generalization effect. We have about 500,000 samples that we work on, and the best model that we currently have is already correct in about 45% of the cases, and it does better than a human, but it still has that generalization problem. We cannot really tell if it would work on other models. So if the adversarial generative AI that you're working on, for example. And we're trying to take all of these approaches that are currently being worked on in order to detect the errors and in order to know how to work against it. And the other thing I wanted to show you is a deepfake detection for deep video manipulation. There are pipelines that are semi-automated, and for example, the Great Songbook, you can almost automatically use a large language model in order to find out. If you try to find the antonym, then you'll find it's the terrible Songbook, and then you clone the voice, you generate the snippet with terrible, then you add it into the video, and you've almost automatically created a snippet that turns the content of the original video on its head. But obviously we're not taking part in that. We're trying to detect when this happens. We already have one AI that we're training on. In about 2 weeks, we'll hand in now and publish our results, and then you'll see how good we're doing on that front. And what do we need to put special emphasis on? There are legal criteria, there is transparency that we need, and then robustness of the models. Who of you knows the AI Act? Okay, a lot of you have already heard it, most actually. If maybe you've already heard that it has a risk-based approach. There are 4 different kinds of risks that we can classify AI with. There is fact-checking. It's usually balanced between high risk and low risk. So depending on which classification the use of the AI is being put in, there are different legal risks that follow. You always have to take care of the distortion of the models, and if you use something like ChatGPT, there are additional restrictions like you need to report on the training data. The training data reporting is so important because the foundation models that we currently know doesn't actually publish anything about the data that they're being trained on. You have no idea of the bias and the distortion that this introduced, and it's now mandatory to publish that. Then there's the transparency. We have different modalities, for example, audio and text. They have different exponential power through the transparency. Usually there is, for example, if it depends on, or you want to publish how the decision process of the AI actually came about. So it basically tries to trace how the decision was made in the model. And there was you can, for example, chain of thought prompting. We get a spectrogram of the audio snippets, and it can then try to mark up what is a suspicious part of it. And robust is also very important, that if you have small snippets that you add into the model, then it shouldn't distort the overall output too much. So we want to get back to our title. Deepfakes are a new reality. How should we think about this today? AI clearly is a great innovation, no doubt about it. There are so many areas it will touch, but this will also generate deepfakes for sure. And these deepfakes will give us a lot of a headache as a society. And it will be harder and harder to have a shared reality as a basis for our society. And the detection of this kind of fake news, fake reality is very hard, and it's very hard to automate the detection. And it's obviously a balancing act between free speech and deepfakes. So we're trying the approach. We're to develop smart tools that help the human as the ultimate decider to have the capability to actually decide. And there is a push for having a classification or like a way to label when deepfakes are happening or when AI is being used to generate something. And these are our demands that we try to develop with how we can counter this problem in order to be more effective in fighting it. We need more resources. We as scientists as very small teams have no chance with the resources that we currently have to work against the big companies that are doing it like OpenAI. We need more researchers for fact-checking and for detection of deepfakes. As a society, we need more AI literacy. People need to understand what AI systems are capable of in order to have a better idea of what is possible. Also, media literacy. Can we teach children in school already how AI systems work, how they're being used, and how can we detect it, and how are we sharing our media online? All right, that's our talk. Next slide. Again, these are us in the best light that we can think of ourselves. We are open for questions. We're going to be here for a while. If you have questions, please come up to us and ask us. Thanks a lot. It was great. It was great to be here. Thank you.